Hmm. Hello, everybody. This is Reverend Jamie Franklin. I'm trying to do a YouTube live stream. Oh, that's not good, is it? Franklin. I'm trying to do a YouTube live stream. Oh, that's not good, is it? It's on a delay. Oh, that's not good, is it? It's on a delay. Oh, that's not good, is it? It's on a delay. Okay. Have I sorted it? No. Okay. Have I sorted it? No. I think I have. Okay. Have I sorted it? Right. I think that's the last one I need to mute. I think I've done it. Right. Can everyone hear me? Can you tell me? Can you tell me if you can hear me or not? That's great. I'm seeing the notifications coming in that you're hearing me and that everything is going okay. It's taken me about half an hour to set this up, and I still feel utterly paranoid that this is not working. But it seems to be working. I don't know where the control center is. I've lost the control center, but I'm sure I can find it again and I can get it back somehow. So the recording of this episode will be okay. The other thing I'm just going to try and do is I'm going to try and record this on Zoom as well so that I can release it as an episode. So I'm just going to start doing that now. Just checking everything's okay. So uh oh, now I have to delete. I just have to delete something on my hard drive. It's just my I have this problem every week where basically I have to delete stuff because it seems to run out of space. So hang on a second. Basically, one of the things I'm saying to you guys today, who are watching this and listening, is that I'm having to manage the technology while I'm doing this. Okay, so it's not easy for me. Okay, because I'm having to multitask, which, as we all know, is typically not something that men can do very easily. So I'm just deleting a couple of old episodes now, just going bye bye, bye bye, bye bye, and then I'm going to just start recording it on Zoom as well. So here we go, recording on Zoom now. You may have heard that. You may have heard that recording in progress. It's kind of like a behind the scenes type thing as well. But honestly, how great is it to be with you guys via YouTube today? It's awesome. And you know what? I'm going to try and get some guests on as well. And this is going to be exciting if it happens, because I don't want to say who might come on because they might not. But if they do, it'd be really cool. I mean, this is the first time that I've tried anything like this. Um, and so I'm going to be clicking around. I'm going to be clicking around on Twitter on my phone a bit because I'm trying to get some guests to come and join me on this show at some point, on this special show, special irreverent show. Oh, thank goodness for coffee. So I thought I'd do this morning because it's an exciting morning, isn't it? And sometimes good things do genuinely happen in life. Oh, by the way, just send me your chat as well so that I can respond to it, because that would be really exciting. I've already seen Mad Beef Queen, Josh and Eleanor are present. So anyone who wants to come on, just come on and just talk to me and I can respond to what you're saying. So basically, I mean, I don't look at my phone first thing in the morning because I think from a spiritual perspective it's not a good thing to do, but I did this morning, and I woke up at about 4:30 or so, I think it was, and I wasn't worried about it. I had a good feeling. I thought the result was going to go in a good way. I woke up, I looked at my phone, and I just had an overwhelming feeling of relief, if I'm honest with you. I really did. And it's so heartening. I put on my Reverend hat, by the way. It's kind of a homage to Trump. It's so heartening because and as I speak, it's not even clear what's happened, because I still think it's 10 a.m. now in the UK. I still think it's not been declared for Trump, and so we're still waiting, I'm pretty sure, to see if he's actually gone over the line yet. But I think he's basically almost there. Um, so what do I want to say about this? The fact that he's won the popular vote by such, well, I don't know by such margin, but he's won the popular vote. I think he's taken Senate, Congress. All, as far as I know, all the key swing states have gone in his favor. It's been a massive, crushing electoral victory. there are all sorts of things you could say about that. You could say that that's to do with Kamala Harris being so obviously just incompetent and inappropriate as a potential president. I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine sitting her in a room with Vladimir Putin or whomever? I mean, it would just be crazy. So you could say that, but you could say a number of other things as well. Like you could say, sorry, the technology is kind of a bit distracting. I'm trying not to look at it too much. You could say it's to do with that, but you could also say that actually one of Kamala Harris's main things was that she was campaigning on abortion, abortion, abortion. That was, abortion is on the ticket, and that was one of the main things. That was, if not the central thing that she was coming out with, as the way to get out the voters. And of course, many people will have voted for that reason, but the Democratic majority have not seen that as a sufficient enough reason to come out and vote for her. So I think that that's a really good thing. I mean, it's just a really, really good sign. I read an article by Roger, who's, he's a fantastic, I love Roger, he's great. And one of the things he was saying was he thinks like, the Democratic majority is basically pro-abortion and that there's nothing that really can be done about that, barring a kind of, a re-Christianization of the West. And, maybe that's true, but also it's quite heartening to see that that's not happened here. So, that's a really good thing. I'm really pleased about things for that reason, from that perspective. Yeah. So what else? Let's have a look. Yesterday I posted up a piece, and we'll have some laughs here as well because there are some funny things. There are some funny things going on. So I posted up a piece yesterday. I'll start with this, which I thought was a really good piece. It was by a guy called Chris Waldberger, who I've never heard of him before. But he said it was this piece on Substack, which is why the world should hope for a Trump victory, and he gives these five reasons. And he doesn't. I don't know whether he's a Christian or not, but I think that this is. I think that all of these are reasons that Christians should be able to accept. I mean, I just saw Tim Farron, for example, saying, "Oh, Christians, don't be worried. Ultimately, God is in control. It's just a sort of coping mechanism to deal with the fact that the guy he didn't want to win has won." So anyway, I just think that that's a really bizarre position to be sad that somebody like Kamala Harris, who wants as many abortions to take place as possible, that Christians should be upset that somebody like her lost. Anyway, so these are these five reasons. So tell me what you think of this. Trump opposes, this is number one, Trump opposes gender. Thank you, Richard, for your comment, by the way. Great idea, Jamie, with the live stream. Thanks. It is indeed a good morning. Amen, brother. So number one, Trump opposes gender and race brainwashing in schools. Kamala Harris has openly indicated support for sex changes for children without parental consent. She advocates state-funded sex changes of prisoners of soldiers. Trump, meanwhile, has said that schools that continue to show children pornographic and race-hating material will be denied funding. Like it or not, American culture is hegemonic. The world needs an American leader who does not want children mutilated and denied their God-given innocence. Somebody's asking Tom, is Roger aired? How do you spell that? What does he mean by that? Is he talking about this blog I'm reading, Chris Waldberger? I don't know what you mean, Tom. Say another comment and I'll be able to help you out there. But yeah, so that's a pretty good thing, isn't it? The world needs an American leader who doesn't want children mutilated and denied their God-given innocence. Kamala advocates state-funded sex changes of prisoners, of soldiers, and there was also the funny one of immigrants as well, wasn't there? So Trump has said he doesn't want schools to continue showing children porn. So yeah, okay. Now, again, what people say, oh, Trump, he's a felon, he's done this and that and blah, blah, blah. And okay, fine. Maybe he has done this and that. Maybe he has spoken in a way which is egotistical or obscene. I mean, he has. I mean, I've heard him doing it, but it's not the point, is it? The point is that his policies are better than these policies. State-funded sex changes of prisoners, of soldiers, of immigrants, of illegal immigrants, the showing of pornography to children in schools, the brainwashing of children in schools, and so on and so forth. Yeah, sorry, Al has got it right. So Roger Aired, that must have been how Tom heard me saying Rod Dreher. Why was I mentioning Rod Dreher? I don't know. I can't remember. It's hard. It's hard when it's just me and I'm doing all the technology and I'm just, I'm just going for it here. And, I can't remember what has been said and it's all live and there's no way I can take any of it back. Anyway, sorry. So that's the first bit. Number two, so this is good as well. Trump wants peace in Ukraine. Harris does not. Now, again, I would say this is like a very, very straightforward Christian principles, right? Based on the Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. I'm going to be preaching on Remembrance Day, and we have all these scouts in church, and that's a fine thing, but it's fine to have them in church. I mean, but one of the things I'm going to talk about is peace, because as Christians we should want peace. We should not want war. If we do advocate for war, it should be only in the very the last ditch, as a last ditch option, as a last ditch recourse, when all other avenues have been explored to the greatest extent they can be. That's a component of just war theory. And there are, of course, many Christians who are just out and out pacifists. But what's going on in Ukraine is not indicative of that at all. It's a war that's being perpetuated for American interests, and not even just American interests, but for American corporate interests. So the fact that Trump wants to stop this war, when these other people, like Biden and Kamala Harris, people in our country and elsewhere, they don't want to stop this war in Ukraine. They want it to continue. So anyway, Trump was the first president, this is the article, Trump was the first president in decades not to start any new wars. He has said he wants to end the Ukraine war within days upon election, and has criticized the maximalist strategy of striking deep into Russian territory with NATO weaponry, thus opening the door for nuclear war. His desire to strike a deal with Putin is not sinister. During the Cold War, Kennedy, Nixon, Carter, and Reagan all did the same with Soviet and Chinese leaders with much, much more blood on their hands. It used to be called diplomacy. So, yeah, I think pretty good point, really. So far we've got Trump doesn't want children to be brainwashed into transgender ideology. Trump, what was the second thing? Trump doesn't want sex changes for prisoners and state-funded sex changes for prisoners and immigrants. And soldiers, and he wants there to not be a nuclear war, and he doesn't want Ukraine to be striking to Russia using NATO weaponry. I mean, it seems, if this was anyone else, from a Christian perspective, everyone would surely be, well, I don't know about that actually. I mean, just to me, it seems like a straightforward kind of Christian position, really. He's also ruled out Iranian regime change. He's openly courted Arab voters, winning the endorsement of Muslim American leaders. Unlike Biden, Clinton, or Bush, Trump was an early and open critic of the Iraqi invasion, based upon a massive state and mainstream media lie about weapons of mass destruction. Yes, he is the peace candidate. Yes, Richard, it does sound like common sense. It sounds like common sense to me, but people seem to have lost the ability to have common sense nowadays. 3, this is number 3. Trump does not hate Christianity. That's interesting, isn't it? Trump does not hate Christianity. And again, you'd have thought that would be a good thing from a Christian perspective. This is the article. In 2016, the Democrats booed the mention of God at their convention. During her campaign, Kamala told an attendee at her rally who declared Jesus is Lord that they are at the wrong rally. Kamala locked up pro-life activists in California and targeted traditional Catholics for state surveillance. Trump has only openly declared a love for Christians. He has called for protection for Armenian Christians facing ethnic cleansing in Muslim states. Remember, the election is not for a pastor, but a secular president. Christians who balk at Trump personally should read about the murderers and adulterers who God chose as leaders in the Bible. Yep, I think that's a pretty good point, really. You see the anti-Christian rhetoric, the openly anti-Christian sentiment of Kamala Harris and her party. Every single major policy that they have is in some way anti-Christian. They are fully paid up members of the culture of death. the culture of transhumanism, and basically oppose Christianity in every way they possibly can, and even they just openly do it at their rallies. They openly mock the notion of God and Christ and so on and so forth. I was watching while I was working out this morning. I was watching Trump's speech, and it's so good to just hear this guy. Um, it's so good to hear this guy just talk. I mean, all the BBC presenters, it was amazing. I was watching on the BBC just for fun, but they were all just taking every opportunity they could to criticize him, saying his talk was rambling and blah blah blah. But it wasn't rambling. It was genuine. It was a genuine speech. It was him speaking from his heart and speaking so movingly, I thought, and then bringing people in as well. I mean, he is a bit egotistical. You can't deny that but this is the thing about Trump. It's always as part of a team. It's always we are doing this together. We are, he rarely actually says like, I did this. If you listen to him, he's like, we did this on the economy. We were great on the economy. We had a great first term. It's always we. And when he was doing this speech, he was bringing other people in as well, which is something I just love to see, and mentioning people who weren't there. For me, I mean, wow. I honestly, I feel really emotionally moved when I say this, but it was amazing to see JD Vance. It was amazing to see him on the stage. I mean, I actually feel emotional. I really do. I feel emotional talking about it because that guy, seeing him on Joe Rogan, oh man, boy, do we need people like him in public life. Man, this guy, a man of, common sense, integrity, courage, intelligence, articulacy, who's just able to speak clearly and with conviction and with honesty, and speak about his family, to speak about his children, as a man who believes in being a father and supporting his wife and his children. It really does kind of restore your faith in things. Sorry to get emotional, but I just love seeing that guy. I love seeing that guy. And when you think about his life as well and what he's been through, I mean, and the fact that he's a believer, really warms the heart. It really does, I have to say. Really does. Yeah. And then he gave a great speech, and he said he said it was the greatest comeback in political history. And then Trump Trump got back on the microphone and he said something like, I made a good choice. I made a good choice. And I just love to see that. I love that man, JD Vance. He's not the Messiah, but yeah, I mean, that's the kind of guy we need, isn't it? Isn't it? I mean, this guy, wow. I mean, wow. I mean, Trump was good when he was on Joe Rogan as well. He was, but JD Vance, he was amazing. I don't know if any of you guys tell me in the comments if you saw it, but he was amazing. He was on there for 3 hours and 20 minutes, and he was amazing. I mean, he just absolutely smashed it out of the park, even on controversial issues, like the corruption of big pharma. I thought, oh gosh, what's he going to say? But even on that stuff, he didn't shy away from the reality. When he was talking about certain things that had happened to him as a result of certain things that he'd taken. I can't be too explicit because I'm on YouTube here, but oh man, it was so good what that guy did on Joe Rogan, and credit to Joe Rogan as well. I mean, amazing, this guy, he's got one of the biggest media audiences in the world, or certainly in the Western world now. And he's had guys, I mean, all these guys, like, well, firstly, RFK Jr. And I can't remember whether RFK has been on once or twice on Joe Rogan, but I've definitely listened to one of them, if not both of them, if there were to. But the way that Rogan just gave RFK time to just go through everything he believes, and open all of these things up, to speak about his own political conviction. So he had Rogan on, he had Trump on, he had JD Vance on, and he had Musk on as well. I haven't seen the Musk one yet because there's so many. I mean, he's just so busy. He's done these last three in about 2 weeks. I haven't had time because they're all over 3 weeks long, 3 hours long, I should say. That guy to do that and just to show that people want that kind of engagement. They want serious, intelligent, deep engagement. They don't want superficial idiocy from people like Kamala Harris, who can't string two sentences again. And it's not because she's just dumb, because she's not. It's not she's an idiot, like she's got a low IQ or something like that. She's been a lawyer, and she can't be just a total idiot. It's because she's a person who lacks a soul. She's got nothing to say because there's nothing in her to say. There's nothing in her. You can't bring anything out of her because there's just nothing there. There's just an emptiness. Whereas with somebody like JD Vance, it's like you get the feeling that you could just talk to this guy for 10 hours and he'd continue to come out with stuff which is interesting and deep and vibrant, because he's a real person with a mind and a soul, and he thinks about things and he reads books and he genuinely engages with other human beings, and he's just a great guy. I mean, he's a real person. And it's wonderful. I mean, I thought the same thing about RFK. It was really impressive. These are real people with integrity, with real ideas. And that's what Rogan does, and that's what the alternative media does. I mean, we try and do it in a obviously far less significant way, but to give people the space and the time to really open up issues and explore them in depth. I mean, that's the joy and the great thing about this alternative media that we are now engaged with, podcasts and things like we're doing now. It's just an amazing revolutionary thing. And this is why, just take another swig of coffee. This is why the left hates it. This is why they hate it, and this is why they're trying to censor it as much as they possibly can, because they don't want people to exchange ideas freely. They don't want the free exchange of information. They don't want depth. They want to brainwash us via the mainstream media, and they want just blanket superficiality so that we will all just mindlessly adhere to their dumb and damaging and destructive ideology and ideas. When people actually start talking and they start exchanging ideas, they recognize that the ideas that we're fed by the mainstream media are just that they are empty, that they're useless, and that we don't have to accept them either, because not everybody does. And that's what the alternative media does. And then, of course, what they do is they try and demonize it, and they say, oh, well, this is like the dark web, or blah, 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 all of this kind of stuff. It's a dark web. It's a bunch of, extremists, these are the dark corners of the internet. It's not that at all. It's ordinary people who are exchanging common sense ideas via an alternative medium to the mainstream media, because the mainstream media has been captured by elites who want to brainwash us into their destructive, post-Marxist ideology. That's what it is. And that's what's so good about Rogan, is because he provides a platform for it, a massive platform, and they absolutely hate him, but they can't do anything about it. And it's the same thing with Elon Musk. And I know people are, Musk's part of the transhumanist regime and blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying he's perfect or anything like that, but he certainly has provided a more open Twitter platform than was there before, when people were being banned left, right, and center according to an ideology. This is a good development. And that's one of the things I would just say from today, is like, sometimes good stuff actually happens. That's true. Like, sometimes good stuff happens. And this could be, I think it is a good moment. It's a great moment, because for no other reason than that regime, that evil regime, and they are utterly evil, utterly godless people. People who celebrate the killing of children, people who celebrate the mutilation of children's bodies, people who want to perpetuate a war in Eastern Europe, which could turn into World War III, which would be a nuclear war. The ending of this regime is a very, very good thing, just in itself. And that's not even to say about the good people who have now got in And, regardless of what you think about Trump, people like JD Vance, people like RFK, people, other good people who are involved in this campaign and who will be involved in this administration, many of them Christians. This is a great time. And sometimes good things do happen. And perhaps that's another reason why I was feeling so emotional just now. Is like we've had such a terrible time, haven't we? Politically for a long time. I mean, I was, I was pleased when Brexit went through 8 years ago, but I think that has actually become a kind of disappointment, really. Although on balance, obviously it's a good thing, but I mean, you consider like what's happened since then. The COVID thing, which has been so disastrous in so many ways, so awful, such a terrible time, and such a betrayal in so many ways. And by the way, I know Trump was involved in that, and that was a low point, and it was a shame. But it was a really hard time, and it was hugely disillusioning. And then, of course, Biden won the US election, and that was also very, very disappointing. I remember this time last year, when I went to sleep, like Trump was like basically all the bookies were giving him, odds on to win, 75% chance of winning. That was 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I woke up and then suddenly Biden has all of a sudden won the election. And, for whatever reason, whatever you think about that. And that was horrible. It was just awful. And it's been bad in the US since then. In our country, we've had the Tories, just utterly betraying the electorate with their unconservative policies and opening the door for this awful Labour government who are destroying our economy, destroying people's lives, taxing people to an extent that they can't afford. Just to say, we haven't covered this on the show yet because we were too late for the budget last week. But the thing about farmers is especially awful, I think. Inheritance tax on farms. I mean, these people are utterly ideologically driven. They've got no desire to actually safeguard the economy of our country. They're just committed to a big state, lots and lots of tax, lots and lots of spends. And I don't even know whether they're convinced that it's going to even bring anything good about as a result. I just think they want to do it. They want the control, and they're willing to destroy people's livelihoods. They're willing to destroy family farms that have been held for generations. They're willing to lie about 22 billion pound black holes. Really good quote from Carol Sikora, that oncologist who's been, I think, to a certain extent red-pilled by the COVID thing. He said, regardless of what Labour say about a 22 billion pound black hole, just remember that COVID cost the UK 400 billion pounds. 400 billion. 400 billion. And there were many, many people, to use Trump impersonation, there were many people who didn't say anything about that. They thought that was all fine. That was all fine and dandy. It's fine and dandy to spend 400 billion pounds trying to stop the Chinese virus from killing people, and to utterly wreck our country, economically, socially, to destroy so many lives, so many businesses. It was all fine to do that. Fine. And it was okay for us to spend 400 billion pounds in doing so. Now there's apparently a 22 billion pound black hole, and in order to plug that black hole, we have to reap such destruction on our nation's fabric through these incredibly damaging tax rises. And by the way, they lied about this because they said they weren't going to do it. They said they weren't going to put up these taxes, and they have done. They've blatantly lied. They said they weren't going to tax working people. That was a blatant lie. The most recent thing is they said they weren't going to put up tuition fees, or they said they were going to abolish tuition fees, and they're actually going to increase them. They are utter liars. They're ideologically driven Marxists, and they don't care whose lives they destroy. So anyway, that's just a little comment on the budget there. My friend Jamie Bambrick's doing some good stuff here. He's written on Twitter, I'm going to say it now, Kamala 2028, she needs to run again. Her story is not over. You can do it, Dems, believe. I love that message. I think that's a really heartwarming message for all those who are who are feeling sad right now, because you do know that sometimes it's not over. You can always come back. You can come back, and maybe you'll get another shot. And ultimately, this is what we need, isn't it? We need a comeback from Kamala, because she had so much to offer. Obviously, she had so much to offer. Anyway, let's have a look at your comments. I mean, this is great. I'm loving this, by the way. This is working, isn't it? It's good. The technology working. I was trying to get it working earlier, and I was thinking, oh my goodness, am I ever going to get this working? But it is. All right, Mad Queen Beef, we're so back. Yes, we are. Book Squirrel. Trump's at least earned his ego and is trying to live up to his word to the US people. Well, yeah, I think you could say that. Mike says, go JD Vance. Absolutely. Gav D. Vance was clear and friendly on Rogan. He spoke like a human being, not a regime stooge. Absolutely. Book Squirrel. Think Jamie needs a big hug. Honestly, I feel like I am being embraced by the world at the moment. That's why I'm doing this live stream. It's like, sometimes you're just flat and the world seems like a terrible place. Other times you just feel like, you could do anything. I mean, I got 6 hours sleep last night, 6.5 hours sleep, woke up at 4:30. And, sometimes that might make me feel quite tired, but actually I'm feeling amazing. Andrew, I saw Vance on Rogan. Are we calling him Vance or Vance? Tell me what you think. He was impressive, I agree, but I was a bit disappointed by his line on abortion. I know he was campaigning, but it seemed like he meant autonomy and life moral equivalence. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, that was the only point which I was thinking that I wasn't quite 100% there with him. I mean, what I would say is that I think somebody in his position, if you're going to be in his position, I think that's about the best that you can do. I think perhaps what he could have said in that context was he could have brought into the equation the protection of the unborn and the perspective of the unborn, which he didn't do. But I think it's one of those things, isn't it? I forget the actual categories, but I remember reading a blog by Doug Wilson where he was basically the pastor from Moscow, Idaho, where he was basically saying, there are broadly speaking 2 sort of pro-life strategies, as it were. One is just a complete sort of refusal to engage with any kind of incrementalism. And just to say that's anything like that is compromise, and just to say the only thing that we can accept is an outright ban on abortion, and we shouldn't be involved with any kind of incrementalism. Whereas the sort of incrementalist position is like, well, you actually need to just move the goalposts further in the direction of the protection of the unborn, and any sort of gain is a benefit. And I'm not saying that necessarily means that, therefore anything, you can say anything in order to move things in that direction. But I do think that somebody like Vance is being canny. I mean, he obviously understands the issues. He's an incredibly intellectually deep man. It's not like he doesn't understand the issues. It's like he's decided to pay lip service to the notion of individual autonomy in order not to be too alienating about it. And also, there is a sense in which I'm sure he believes that autonomy or freedom is a good thing. And so saying that in that context, saying that he understands it, at least he didn't say he sort of supports it, but saying he understands it and he understands the impulse, I think is part of that incrementalist strategy. So I think that's the way he's going, and it's part of his kind of magnanimous approach to things in general. He tries to be fair to the other side, and he tries to hold things together, and ultimately that's going to play well with the electorate, because he's going to bring more people into it through doing it in that way. It's a very, very intellectually sophisticated and difficult thing to do. Actually, it's not something I find easy at all, to try and identify with the perspective of your opponent and to give as much as you can while still maintaining your integrity. And ultimately, I think what we need to ask ourselves is, if he was far more hardline about it and say, for that reason they didn't do as well, is that a sacrifice worth making? Isn't it worth approaching it in a in as diplomatic a way as you possibly can, whilst not losing your integrity, not giving away your integrity, in order that you might persuade people to, give you the vote and so on and so forth. So I agree with what you're saying there, Andrew. But I think it is defensible. I don't think it was a kind of I don't think the way he approached it was lacking integrity. But anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. So we've got Twinkie Drip, MSM chewing wasps. Yes, they are, aren't they? Let's face it. They don't like it. One bit. Chomsky was right. This is Gav D. About the media being about manufactured consent, not reporting the news. Yes, that's absolutely true. Sally Edwards. Yay. Hi, peeps. Hello, Sally. Nice to see you. A shaft of light in our current doom-laden UK politics, says Twinkie. Tom, chin up, boy. PMQs today could be good. It could be interesting. I'll say something about the Prime Minister in a minute. Richard said, it's going great. Enjoying listening while I work, Jamie. Thank you, Richard. Will, what do you think about breakaway groups in the CFE like AMIE and GAFCON? That's a slightly different issue, isn't it? GAFCON's not a breakaway group in the CFE, by the way. It's actually slightly different to that. It's sorry, I was just looking at the technology for folks on our Patreon, which I shared. I hope everyone can see it. I'm not sure whether they can. Hope they can. What happens if I press play? No, I don't know. Who knows what's going on? Sorry, folks. More problems with the technology. It does say on the, when you go on these things that tell you how to set it up, you should have somebody else managing the technology while you're doing it. Otherwise, it's too complicated. Sorry. I wasn't able to do that. So I'm doing it all at once. Yeah, GAFCON's an affiliation. It's like a global affiliation of Anglicans, Orthodox Anglicans. So there are people within the CFE who are part of GAFCON, and people without, as it were. Yeah. So anyway, let's not get too much into that. Let's focus on this, what we're talking about here. Okay, so just on Prime Minister thing. So I should say something about that. So what's Starmer going to say about this? We welcome Donald Trump to the White House and hope that he does well for everyone in his country. We look forward to more diplomatic relationship with our neighbors in America. Yes, I mean it will be like that. Oh, apparently Martin Swinburne's telling me Trump has just crossed the line with 277 votes. He's crossed the 270 mark. So Trump now seems to be the 47th president of the United States. Congratulations, Donald Trump. This is the moment that we were hoping for. This is the moment we've been waiting for. And we're really, really pleased to hear about this. Now, one thing, I haven't heard from any of my potential guests. So if you can think of a guest for me to try and get in touch with and ask while I'm live on air to talk to, let me know. And I'll if I got their number or if I got their contact detail, I'll look them up and see if I can do it. Okay. Because the three people, I'm not even going to tell you who they are because, it's just not appropriate. But I haven't been able to get them on. So let's see if somebody can suggest something. Right. So what I was going to say about this situation with, oh, good, the stream's working on Patreon. That's good to hear. Thank you, Elle. Even New York was 45% for Trump, which is promising, even though Harris won there. I mean, I also had the statistic that it was like, what was it, 70%? So between people who earn $25,000 and I think it was $60,000. So $25,000 is per year is the poverty line. So from $25,000 to $60,000 a year, Trump, I think he had 70% of that vote, which is really interesting, isn't it? When you consider the poor voted for Trump. I mean, and it shouldn't surprise us, but I'm just saying, just from a Christian perspective, the poor voted for Trump. They didn't vote for Harris. The Democrat Party used to be the party of the working class, but they have betrayed the working class to such an extent, and it's the same thing with the Labour Party here. They betrayed the working class to such an extent that a statistic like that is now possible. And it's just saying, like, from a Christian perspective, just consider that. Consider that Trump is the choice of the poor. And consider about, what we're supposed to think about the poor as Christians, like we're just, shortcut. We're supposed to care about the poor, aren't we? We're supposed to care about people who are in economic poverty. This is another thing as well. Oh, I love this. I love this. On the BBC, you've got these, apparently neutral presenters just, going through in this, this really quite pathetic attempt to be neutral, going through all the things that Trump has done, which is so controversial. And it was that guy, with the strange eye. I don't know his name, but anyway, he was saying, all this, he's done these things despite the fact that he's being accused of various things, and he's facing federal charges, and despite the fact that he has promised to bring in import tariffs. And I just thought to myself, like, what on earth are you talking about? So you're lumping import tariffs in with the fact that Trump is being accused of various felonies, and that he's been, accused of rape and, whatever else. Apparently, import tariffs are one of the really bad things that Trump intends to bring in. I mean, just listen to Trump on Rogan for that. I mean, there was a great moment in that. I don't know whether anyone saw it, but Rogan was they were talking about this, and Trump said to Rogan, he was like, "You want to know what the greatest word in the English language is? The most beautiful word in the English language? Tariff. Tariff is a beautiful word. Better than love. Better than anything. Tariff." And that was a great moment. And the reason that Trump loves tariffs is because opening up the labor market, no, opening up the import market to America has been absolutely catastrophic for the white working class of America. It's been catastrophic for the poor of America in general. And it actually happened, as far as I understand it, through Bill Clinton for the first time. But the fact that America opened its borders to so many foreign imports has been utterly catastrophic for the working class, and great swathes of America for that reason will never vote Democrat again because of the betrayal of the working class communities. And what Trump is saying is, let's bring back tariffs. Let's bring them back, and then we can bring back American jobs. We can promote the American economy. We can have import tariffs, so we can get manufacturing going in the US again, and we can rebuild communities, and we can have jobs in America. And that's what the BBC guy was saying was a bad thing. He was like, "Oh, we don't want import tariffs." Why not? Why don't you want import tariffs? I mean, what's so bad about it? I literally can't even understand it from an ideological perspective, apart from that you're just committed to the destruction of the poor and the working class and their communities. You just hate the idea of tariffs. But Trump loves the idea of tariffs, man. The most beautiful word in the English language, tariff. More beautiful than love, more beautiful than anything. It was a great moment. Right, let's see. Get Nigel on. Yeah, I can't get Nigel Farage on an impromptu live stream on YouTube on the morning of the US election victory. Unfortunately, he would be too difficult. Sorry, I think he's probably busy. Andrew says, "I agree with your take, Jamie." This is on JD Vance and the abortion thing. "I'm an RS teacher at a girls' school and often have to try and empathize with badly thought through pro-abortion positions while giving pushback. I think JD did well." Yeah, I agree with that. I think he did do well, and I thought it was okay what he did, and under the circumstances it was very difficult. I did think to myself that I couldn't be oh yeah, I'm going to play you a clip in a minute. It's going to be funny. I did what was I just saying? Oh, well, there's so many things going on at once. Oh yeah, there's a good one here from Gavin Ashenden, who's written the Te Deum. We praise thee, O God, etc. I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of doing something. No coming in, please. My children try and come in. And then he's underneath that, he's put a map of the presidential election results with Trump's victory. That's a great one. That's great trolling from Gavin Ashenden there. No, please go away. So what was I doing? Honestly, I've got so many things. I've got kids trying to come in my office. I've barricaded the door. I've got Twitter up. I've got, my attempts, my so far unsuccessful attempts to get special guests on the show. I've just had somebody who I wanted to come on who said he can't, sadly, because he's busy. Sebastian, morning, Jamie. Good morning. Nice to see you. This person, Twinkie Drip, I've got a feeling I must know you personally, but I can't work out who you are because your photo's too small. Oh yeah, the kids are trying to break in. I'm basically under siege. I'm under siege from kids. All right, listen, this is great. Um, we're gonna listen now to Rory Stewart and what's his name? What's his name? I can't even remember his name now. Alistair Campbell. And you know what's really great about this clip is at the bottom they've got a quote from Trump saying, "God spared my life for a reason," and that's right. That's right. Oh no, somebody said about the David Lammy tweet as well. No, I haven't seen the David Lammy tweet. Send it to me. Send me a link to it or something. I don't even know how these things work. Send me a link. Right. So let's see, shall we? And this is again, so Rory Stewart, widely pilloried. But in fact, let's find his original. I mean, these people, it just shows you like the delusion of these people, like how deluded they are. They are so out of touch with reality. And they really just what they need to do is they need to take a long, hard look at themselves and actually, you know, um, actually think about why they're so wrong all the time. Okay. So actually, this is great because this is Nick Dixon's thread of losers. We'll get back to this in a minute, by the way. I'm kind of I'll pick up the thread. Okay, I'm gonna do the clip in a minute, but I want to do this. So Nick Dixon's thread of losers, starting with Rory Stewart. This is Nick talking. Classic UK elite bubble delusion. Needs to end his podcast immediately. Loving that, Nick. So this is Rory Stewart's tweet from 6:37 on the 4th of November. So it's a couple of days ago. Kamala Harris will win comfortably because Biden's admin has been solid. Yeah, sure it has. Trump's lost ground since 2016. No, he hasn't, man. The young black male votes, which Trump needed, didn't turn out in 16, 18, 20, or 22. And young women like Kamala plus vote ignore polls. They're herding after past misses. Okay, so that's what he said. Apparently, he also said that he would bet £100,000 on Trump winning, right? So let's listen to his. Let's listen.
I got it totally wrong. I thought Kamala Harris would win, and I believe she would win comfortably. I thought it would be over quite quickly. Despite
chaps, can you tell me, and chapesses, can you tell me in the comments if you can't hear this? Because I'm listening to this now, and I hope this is coming through on the live stream.
Polls showing 50-50. Why? Well, I can repeat my arguments. They were technical arguments about young African-American voters and how they would turn out, her ground game, the money, the performance of Biden's administration.
Great.
It's all turned out to be wrong, completely wrong. I don't think, though, that I was fundamentally wrong because I'm patronizing towards people. I never felt that. I never felt that as a politician in Britain. I didn't feel I was patronizing towards my Brexit voting constituents. I think I was wrong because I'm an optimist. And I hate the idea of being right pessimistically. I think you can be a false prophet and right. You can align yourself with the worst instincts of humanity. You can assume that everything's going to hell in a handbasket, or you can hope. And my bet on Kamala Harris was a bet on the American people. It was a bet on liberal democracy. It was a bet against populism, and it was a bet on hope.
So are we wrong to think that that can work? That's the really difficult thing that this sort of confronts us with.
Well, it's so difficult because, of course, I felt in a very minor way, in Britain, seeing Boris Johnson take over, this just proves everything that I feared, that the bad people win, populism triumphs. And I've spent a long time trying to pull myself together and see moments of light and inspiration. You've just written a book inspiring young people to get involved in politics. We have to believe that the Middle East peace process can still be solved, the two-state solution is possible, that peace can come back to the world, and that the world can get back onto a better trajectory.
Trump wants peace in the Middle East, by the way, unlike the warmongering Democrats.
But tonight, is a very, very devastating body blow. This is 25% of the global economy. This is the world's largest, oldest, most mature democracy that has just voted for a multiple convicted felon.
Yeah, I mean, Rory Stewart is he's completely blind. I mean, Richard's already pointed this out in the comments, the bad people, yeah, not patronizing at all. So on the one hand, he says, I don't feel like I've ever been patronizing. I've never been patronizing. I wasn't patronizing to people who voted for Brexit. I've never patronized anyone. And then immediately after that, he describes the massive majority of people who voted for the Tories back in 2019, was it? And also the millions and millions of Americans who have just cast their vote for Donald Trump as the bad people. And he doesn't understand why people might find that patronizing. I mean, it's just these people are so out of touch. And you just listening to them, you know, being a fly on the wall in this conversation, it's just, and I'm watching them as well. It's like they're just, and you know what, actually, this is something I've found sometimes in the church as well, and forgive me, you know, I don't want to be critical unnecessarily, but the fact is that in any institution, when people rise up to a kind of elite level, it seems like the temptation there is to surround yourself by like-minded people, or maybe it just happens sort of organically, and then it just turns into a kind of group thing, and you never actually hear the opinions of other people, and you don't hear the opinions of normal people either. And that's, you know, it's very, very common. I find that sometimes I sort of speak to clerics who aren't, you know, who are just hobnobbing with, you know, I don't know what they are. You know, they're not by and large parish priests, let's put it that way. Or if they are, they're very insulated, or, you know, live in a metropolitan area or something like that. And they just assume certain things like, you know, oh, we should all drive electric cars, or climate change is a really bad thing, and everyone should get rid of their gas boilers, and that nobody should have a log burner, and, you know, everybody wants Kamala Harris to win. And, you know, all of these kind of just, you know, sort of centrist dad kind of boring mainstream intelligentsia opinions. They just assume that everyone has them, and so they speak like everyone's you know, going to be just of the same opinion. And it's funny because when I'm in that situation, they, you know, they don't know who I am. Otherwise they wouldn't be saying it in that way. And I'm just thinking to myself, well, I'm just, you know, you're just living on a completely different planet to me, and I think to most ordinary people. And that's what happens. And that's the case with Stewart and Asda Campbell, is that they're both just media and political elites who are utterly out of touch with ordinary people. And the fact that, why was Rory Stewart ever running for the leader of the Conservative Party, by the way? Can somebody explain that to me? Can somebody explain that to me? Because it seems like the man does not have a conservative bone in his body. And hobnobbing with Alistair Campbell on that awful podcast. I mean, honestly, really. Josh says, people like Rory Stewart predict things they want to happen, not things based on reality, because their worldview doesn't allow them to think opposing views to theirs are even possible. Yeah, it's basically what he said, isn't it? He said, you know, I'm hopeful. I'm a hopeful person. So out of my hope, out of my sense of optimism in the eventual triumph of the human spirit, I predicted a win, an easy win, a landslide win for the paragon of revived humanity, which is Kamala Harris, a woman who has had no support, you know, no political support from her own party of any significant degree. A woman who's only in the position that she is because of her ethnicity and biological sex. A woman who cannot basically string a couple of sentences together. You know, she can't do an interview without an earpiece. You know, it's just a joke. It really is. It's an absolute joke. Michael says, glory be, apart from anything else, an answer to prayer. I've noticed a lot of US Catholic channels. There have been an enormous amount of prayer vigils, special rosaries, etc. Prayed for the nation. Yeah, and that was a great moment. I forgot about this actually, so I'll come back to this now. When Trump said that he thinks that God spared his life in order that he might help the American people. And that, you know, when he mentioned God, that got the biggest cheer out of pretty much anything he said on the night. That's it was an amazing moment. You know, I'm not saying Trump's a Christian. I'm not saying anything like that, but I'm just saying it was a great moment. It was a great moment, wasn't it? To hear that, you know, and you contrast that. I may have already mentioned this. Sorry, I can't remember what I said. This isn't structured really. You contrast that with Harris and telling that person who shouted out, I think they shouted out Jesus Lord, saying you're at the wrong rally. You want to be at the rally down the street. Well, you know what? She was right about that. He was at the wrong rally. He was at the wrong rally. He was at a rally filled with people who hate God and hate what God wants for the world and want to build their own kingdom on the world and don't care about what God says. So that's what happened. And that's a great thing. So yeah. Sorry, I'm having to reply to one of the messages of somebody saying they can't join me, which is a shame. But I'm still hopeful. You never know. You never know who might turn up. And I have had some responses. Let's see what are people suggesting I should get on. I mean, I'm probably not going to be able to get anyone on. There's people say try and get Calvin on. I don't think I'm going to be able to get Calvin on because he'll be in America doing stuff. So I don't think it's possible. I'm hoping Nick Dixon's going to come on with me, but he's been up all night and I think he's fallen asleep by the looks of things because he hasn't seen any of my messages. Twinkie Drip, such a great day today. Not sure whether to pop the champagne or draw breath. Michael, we need to keep praying for God's hand in Trump's actions. Yeah, I mean, I know that's true. Get Welby on, somebody said. Yeah, Justin Welby's. Yeah, I mean, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? I you know, the fact is, you know, I think I should be respectful to Archbishop Justin because he is ultimately Archbishop of Canterbury, but it would be very interesting to interview him and to ask him, I think from a theological perspective, how he justifies the things that he believes. Somebody's written, why are you wearing an S&M collar? This is just a standard collar. I don't know what that's, William. I don't know why you're saying that. I mean, I'm a vicar. Maybe you don't realize I'm a vicar. Don't know. Can we get Tom or Daniel on? No, sorry, Richard. I did try, but Tom is on holiday and Daniel is finishing writing his book. So he's not around, I don't think. So yeah, it's difficult. Where's the damn David Lammy quote, by the way? Somebody said this thing about David Lammy quote. I still want to get this. And I also want to say something about Kemi Badenoch. William says, have you got a Bible verse for wearing an S&M collar? No, I don't really think I need to have a Bible verse for wearing a collar, to be honest with you. It's just the way I dress, man. Yeah, he just congratulates, David Lammy just congratulates Trump, even though what did he call him, like a fascist or something like that? If there was a funny David Lammy Trump, oh, scroll up to get the Lammy tweet. All right, sorry, I'm doing it now. I want to find the Lammy tweet. Where's the Lammy tweet? I've scrolled up a long way. Can't find it. What did he say? Tell me what he said. I mean, this is great, isn't it? It's like being a radio DJ. No, I mean, I literally can't find it anywhere. Is it a hyperlink? Where is it? Can't find it, man. You're going to have to tell me. Tell me where I can find this. Have you seen the David Lammy tweet and the comment preceding it? But it's just not there. I can't see it. You're going to have to tell me. It's a very gritted. Yeah, people keep on saying shame Tom and Daniel's way. Yeah, I know, but you've got me. I mean, you know, I know it's a shame, but you know, come on, man. You've got the Frankmeister. Yeah, it's here. Is this the one? Congratulations to the real Donald Trump on your victory. The UK has no greater friend than the US, with a special relationship being cherished on both sides of the Atlantic for more than 80 years. We look forward to working with you and JD Vance in the years ahead. Yeah, great. He's the MP for Tottenham. I didn't actually realize that. Yeah, and then somebody's retweeted David Lammy from, when was this? 26th of, I think that must be October 2017. Read Daily Mail story today. Yes, if Trump comes to the UK, I will be out protesting on the streets. He is a racist KKK and Nazi sympathizer. Yeah. Carol Vorderman. So does that mean no tariffs for us then with this special relationship? I mean, they're all just tweeting that one from 2017, aren't they? What about getting Dellingpole on? I mean, you know what Dellingpole would say is he'd just say, that this is all just a massive psyop, wouldn't he? And none of it's real, which I think would, he's entitled to think what he likes, but ultimately, I just think at this point that would kill the mood somewhat. So let's not get down in pole on for the time being. Okay, so the other thing I just wanted to talk about was the election of Kemi Badenoch. And actually, Nick did a really good video on this, Nick Dixon, which you can find on YouTube, where he's basically saying that Kemi, he calls her an anti-woke liberal. And I think he's right about that. So she is anti-woke, but she's fundamentally liberal in her outlook. And you can see the out of touchness of the Conservative Party by the way that they have trumpeted this as a triumph for identity politics, essentially. And I've seen more stuff like this morning about, I mean, the worst one was obviously James Cleverly calling Labour pale, male and stale, which is just racist, isn't it? I mean, it's just racism. And the fact that it's Conservatives are doing that, and people introducing her and saying, "Oh, it's great that we've got the first black woman leader," and so blah blah blah. And Nick makes a really good point that Margaret Thatcher never called attention to the fact that she was a woman. She was there on merit. She was a great leader, not because she was a woman, but because she had the skills and the ability to do it. So, the Conservatives really do need to stop doing this. But at the same time, it's indicative of where they are at as a party. And it's in no way a step in the right direction for them, in my opinion. I think, the generic would have been, but I don't think she is at all. And yeah, I think it's a false dawn if people are thinking because she's anti-woke that she's actually going to do anything decent. Somebody suggested getting Nick Dixon on. I am trying to do that, but he's not responding to my messages. I mean, basically, no one's available on Wednesday morning, so I mean, it's maybe that's not very surprising. Where's your MAGA hat? I don't have a MAGA hat, unfortunately. So sorry about that. If I did, I'd probably put it on. Although that might be quite a provocative image of me in a MAGA hat and a dog collar. Richard says there are barely any Conservative politicians in the UK Parliament anymore. I bet on signal figures. Yeah, well, maybe it might not be that bad. There are some good people around. I think what's his name, who's been on the show. Sorry, because I'm a little bit sleep deprived. My memory isn't working as it should do. But like people like Danny Kruger, I think he's okay. I know he's not in Parliament, but David Frost, those kind of people, they're pretty good. Yeah, shall I tell you somebody I could email or I could message is Bethel McGrew. I could try and get her on and get her reaction. I mean, but yeah, she'd be quite good. I mean, she's probably not available and this is all very last minute. Anyway, I don't know whether any of that's going to work. So, yeah, so that's what I think about that. I mean, what does the UK need in its leadership? Well, obviously, it needs a return to Christ and to what Christ wants for the world. But is somebody like Kemi going to reverse the mistakes that the Conservatives have made? I don't think just by opposing wokery she's going to do that. I think there needs to be more. I think there needs to be more than that. Sorry, I'm a bit distracted. It's hard to sort of give any coherent commentary. Now, here I've got somebody saying, Lisa Booth saying, witnessing this as I left the Trump party moved me to tears. These people have been slandered and demeaned. They are good people, patriots of all backgrounds who love this country and came together to make it great again. All right, I'm going to play this because they're obviously singing. Let's. guys have all got their hands in the air. Smartphones out. I mean, it really brings the tears to the eye. It really does, to see that people at the Trump victory party doing that. And I know what people will say as a kind of critique. They'll say, oh, well, this is, this is a kind of Constantinian kind of state religion thing. But I don't think you need to see it like that. I think you can just see it as a good development within, the history of US and therefore global politics. And I don't think you always have to make that kind of critique. If you were to think about good developments that have happened in the past, like, for example, I don't know, the end of the Second World War, victory in the Second World War, or whatever it might be, you can praise God for these things. And I think you can praise God for the Trump victory. I really do. And I think that there's something really genuine about what I just listened to and what I saw, these people with their hands in the air. It's a great thing to see. It really is a great thing to see. And, I'm so happy to see it. Right, let's have a little look and see what else I haven't commented on. Oh, that's the same thing. Picture of Musk in the Oval Office. I think that I can't imagine that's real. I don't think he's there yet. He's going to slash and burn, man. Slash and burn some needless expenditure. I'm just going on my Patreon now just to see if anyone has. Oh my goodness, there are 24 comments on my Patreon. I didn't realize that. Wow. Jan says, I so wanted him to win, but didn't dare. And by the way, you can all join Patreon if you'd like to, by going to irreverentpod.com and clicking on the big red button. You can support the podcast. By doing that, you can do it for as little as £1.50 per month plus VAT in the UK. I'm part-time vicar, part-time podcaster and writer, and I rely for my income from my podcasting and writing. So do come online. And I don't mean come online. I mean do come onto Patreon if you can. £1.50 plus VAT in the UK per month, and that's on irreverentpod.com. You can click the big red button and do that. A number of people when I was setting up. Kennedy is in the White House now. Let the cleanup begin. Joel says, I was confident he would win. The progressive media and commentary wildly out of touch. Julian says, I do a great Trump impression. Great impression, man. Great people. Great impression. My impression is nowhere near as good as Nick Dixon's, but yeah, there we are. Let me tell you, Joel, BBC was nowhere near as bad as Rest is Politics, which I couldn't help listen to. Do you know why she lost? Because she's a black woman and because people don't care enough about murdering babies. That's just to be clear, that's what they were saying. The reason, the Rest is Politics was saying, the Rest is Politics is saying that the reason that they lost is because she's a black woman and because people don't care enough about abortion, about murdering babies. That's what whoever, Joel, I think it was, said. So interesting comment. Lucy says, terrific bonus live stream, Jamie. Thank you. As one of the bad people, I'm absolutely jubilant for America and the world today. Wish it was happening here too. Richard Majors, good point here. How undemocratic is it to complain of popularism? Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, really, isn't it? Like, it's exactly the same thing that happened when Brexit happened. They were like, oh yeah, but the 51 or 52% of people, they're just wrong. They're wrong and they're idiots. And this is, this is against, I mean, it was, they wouldn't say it was against the will of the people, but it was like, oh, if we have enough campaigns, if we have enough protests, then the people who voted against Brexit will be listened to. But that's not the whole point of democracy is you have a proportional majority and then you go with it, right? And you can't just say, well, we don't like that result and loads of people are unhappy about it and therefore we want it overturned. It's like, well, sorry, you lost. Julian Ham says, how about not treating everyone with such contempt? Yes, I completely agree with that, Julian. Yeah, people are fed up with being treated with such utter contempt from the elites. It was good to know people are listening on Patreon. Sorry, I've neglected you by now, till now. I didn't actually realize it was all working so well. So it's actually great to know. I think I have to sort of refresh the page on Patreon to get new comments. So I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. And just for all the patrons, because it's a special week, this is going to be the episode, just so you know. I know I usually release it early. I mean, I will release it early, but you're hearing the episode now as it's going to normally be, and I'll release this as our weekly episode on Friday morning. Tom and Daniel are not here, unfortunately, both busy, but hopefully it's okay just having me this morning. I know it's sad that they're not here, but yeah, so it's just me. Hope that's okay with y'all. I was hoping to get some live guests on, but I only just tried at the very last minute, and yeah, just nobody's replying to any of my messages. I mean, it's fair enough. They're probably like all asleep, aren't they? If they've stayed up watching this. Burnside has tweeted, please post your best copium and meltdowns below. Let's have a look, see if we can find any. Owen Jones. All right. Owen Jones tweets, I'm going back to my hotel in New York. This was at 7:42 this morning, so after he knew they'd lost. I'm going back to my hotel in New York with a Muslim Pakistani American cab driver who voted for Donald Trump because, quote, the prices were too high under Biden. That's not really a cope, as it were, is it? Or what's he? I don't even know what he's trying to say with that. Anna says, all of those years making sure my timeline wasn't an echo chamber have paid off. And you've got James O'Brien tweeting, what the fresh hell is this? Mike Galsworthy, well, if you needed yet another reason for the UK to join the EU, here it is. Because we don't want to be allied with America. MSNBC is having a total meltdown. Should we listen to this? We could listen to this. Let's do it. Let's listen to him.
We still have an electorate, 70 million plus, that will be voting for a man who said he was going to assassinate for treason the chairman of the Joint Chiefs because he didn't support him on January the 6th, who has said just in recent days he was going to execute Liz Cheney with a firing squad, 9 guns pointed and shooting at her face. A man who has said that he was going to shut down CBS because he didn't like how they edited an interview. A man who said he was going to be a dictator from day one. A man who said he was going to terminate the Constitution. A man who said he was going to use the army and he was going to use the National Guard on his political opponents. I literally could go on.
Did Trump do any of those things? I mean, there were quite a few things he said there, but I don't know. Did he say any of those things? Are any of those things true? Literally a single one?
All day. And yet you talk to Trump voters and they'll go, he didn't say that. Wait, now I didn't hear him. And then you say, well, here's the quote. And then they'll go, yeah, he didn't mean that. So there's something far more long-lasting than just Donald Trump, the candidate. There is a sort of Russian embrace of disinformation, a radical devaluing of truth over the last 9 to 10 years, and a complete ignorance on civics and what the term Madisonian democracy even means, what checks and balances even means.
This guy is like the epitome of the US media elite. He actually, I know you can't see it, but he actually looks like Matthew Perry. I mean, it's amazing.
What judicial review even means, what the rule of law even means. How do we as a nation, even post-Trump, how do we reach those Americans who apparently didn't go to civics class, apparently didn't learn the basics of this Constitution, and have just been overwhelmed with disinformation over the past.
Yeah, that's the only reason anyone would vote for Trump, isn't it? Because of disinformation, because they've been told that certain things are true which are not true, and they've naively believed it. And that's just, again, it's the same thing with Brexit, wasn't it? We were all too stupid. We didn't understand what we were voting for. We didn't understand the question. We were all too thick. We weren't educated enough. And we're told, it was the uneducated people who voted for Brexit because they're stupid. They're idiots. That's the only reason anyone could vote for something that the elite disagree with. So there we are. There we go. I'm just trying to see if I can find any others. I mean, it's bad how I'm sure a number of you have seen this Wokey McWokeface has retweeted this map, and it's basically a map of America, and it's got the northeast and the west coast in blue with America written on it, and then the rest of America, which is the middle America and southeast US. It's got the words dumb F, as in the F word, dumb Effistan there, and includes Alaska, of course, as well. And that's that about sums it up, doesn't it? I mean, apart from the fact that having the stand on the end makes it sound like completely racist, and so really quite self-aware for whichever progressive put this image together. That just shows you what these people think. They think that people who voted for Trump are worthy of their contempt, and that they are stupid, and that they're gullible, and that they're probably evil and naive. The best you can say about them is they're gullible and stupid and credulous. The worst is they're just evil. They just support evil. They support a man who is basically Hitler. So, yeah. So somebody's written agree with Eleanor. What did Eleanor say that they agree with? Can't find it now. Oh, we're quite happy with you just talking. Oh, okay. Well, that's nice. Thank you. Stupid. Yeah, Joey says stupid people voted. Yes, that's exactly what happened. Okay, well, fair enough. I assume you mean that ironically. See if there are any more comments on Patreon. Elizabeth suggests Maya Tuzi. He's great on UK free speech. I don't. Yeah, I mean, I can certainly look at that for future episodes. I don't actually know who that person is. Julian says we should encourage the elites to continue in their blindness. They'll keep getting Trump, Brexit, and Boris ad infinitum. Yeah, well, they certainly will. Did anyone hear that thing? I didn't actually see it. I mean, yeah, I wasn't watching TV last night, but apparently Boris kept on promoting his book, his autobiography, on the Channel 4 election coverage. And, I'm still annoyed about COVID, obviously, and Boris, and I never trust him again. But he is quite funny sometimes, to be fair. There's quite a funny picture of him with his book. Did I ever get round to the end of that thing that I did at the beginning with Chris Waldberg? Oh yeah, Trump, the reasons why we should be happy about Trump. I suppose, yeah, we don't need to go further into that. I think I've kind of made the main points there. I also had a good tweet from David Frost, which I'll read out now. I actually retweeted this. The very welcome victory, so this is Frosty, the very welcome victory for real Donald Trump this morning has come at a crucial time for the West. For the first time across all our countries, there are real signs of pushback against the conventional wisdom of recent years. Trump's victory strengthens this decisively and sets a different course to dismantle the overmighty bureaucratic state, control our borders, protect free speech, stand up for historical and biological reality, end disastrous net zero policies, and get the West's foreign and defense policies in line with our actual capabilities. A Harris victory would have seen us doubling down on all the policies that got us into this mess. That's why so many progressives are so disappointed this morning. They know their ideas are on the way out. That's a brilliant tweet, and it really concisely summarizes the issue. So let's just have a look at some of those. The overmighty bureaucratic state, again, that's what we've seen. That's what we've seen reflected in the budget last week in the UK. The desire to just inflate the state to the biggest level they possibly can through tax and spend. Control our borders. Again, this is what people want to see. It's not racism. They just want basic control of their borders so that they can preserve infrastructure in their nation, so that they can have some kind of control over their own culture, so they're not overwhelmed with foreign labor, and so that the school system works, and so that roads and hospitals and things like that which work, and so on and so forth. So crime, and that crime is kept as low as possible. I mean, what's going on in America is obviously mad, but it's the same principle here. And again, it's another thing that the elites refuse to acknowledge. I spoke about this with the Justin Welby interview on The Rest is Politics the other day. He'll talk about, the affront to the human dignity of immigrants in having immigration policies that don't allow just everyone to come into the country. But he'll never talk about what this does to people who actually live in these nations. When you have just open borders with gangs crossing over into the country. People who have been, I think was it in Venezuela, where they were literally emptying the prisons and encouraging these people to cross over into the US. So anyway, I mean, we've talked about this so many times on the podcast. Immigration is completely out of control in the US, and it's out of control here as well. And you can't just keep on telling people that they're racist and they shouldn't care about these things. The protection of free speech, Frost is also talking about, which again, I think is absolutely true. They want to, like I was saying earlier, they want to shut down free speech because they don't want people sharing ideas which may contradict the ideas that they deem acceptable. That's why they hate social media. That's why they hate podcasts. That's why they hate alternative media like Joe Rogan and call people like him grifters. Stand up for historical and biological reality. Well, yes, that's true as well. It's pretty straightforward, common sense. End disastrous net zero policies. Yes, absolutely. And get the West foreign and defense policies in line with our actual capabilities. Again, yes. So that's a really, really good quote from Frost there. And I think concisely summarizes the issues. Joey says, Jesus said that we should turn back the migrant and the hungry. We should not treat them as our own. Right. It's kind of hard to read that, to sort of pass that tweet, because I don't know. It's not a tweet, sorry, comment, because I don't know how it's meant, but I assume it's meant ironically. I assume that what Joey is saying is that Jesus said we should not turn back the migrant and the hungry, and we should treat them as our own. And I think that's a really important point. So for a start, I don't think really Jesus talks about immigration as a political policy. It's not something, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but to point me to a chapter and verse where Jesus talks about immigration. I don't think things actually function in the same way back then, because they didn't have a defined nation state in the way that we do in our day, with national sovereignty and borders and so on and so forth. But of course, Jesus taught us to love our neighbor, and he told the parable of the Good Samaritan and so on and so forth. Now, the fact is that on an individual level, as Christian disciples, of course, we are to love our neighbors. Of course, we're to help people who are in need. Of course, we are to feed those who are hungry, to be generous with the resources that we have, and so on and so forth. But it's not as simple as just saying you can take that principle and then just sort of unilaterally impose it onto one side of a complex political issue such as immigration, right? So yes, there may be migrants who want to come into the country who are hungry and economically deprived and in need of our help. But as people who are making political decisions, people in government and so on, you also have a moral responsibility to the people who live in your country as well, some of whom may be poor, some of whom may be struggling and in difficult circumstances for various economic reasons, maybe struggling real economic hardship or economic devastation, who may be put in a position of danger because of violent criminals coming into the country and so on and so forth. So you have to balance these things. You can't just say, oh, well, Jesus told us, to feed the hungry, and therefore we should have just unfettered mass immigration. That's just an entirely simplistic way of looking at the issue. Now, what I'm saying is that there just needs to be a balance between the two sides. I'm not saying I'm anti-immigration. I'd be more in favor of a genuinely humanitarian immigration policy, but that's not what's happening at the moment. We're just having unfettered mass immigration. And the fact is that the majority of people who come into the country are not in genuine economic need. They're just coming here because they want to live in the UK for whatever reason. They just prefer it. And so there has to be a kind of a sensible grown-up conversation about who should be allowed to come and have permanent residency in the UK and for what reason. And it can't just be, well, we just have this sort of amorphous commitment to philanthropy towards foreigners, and with no regard to the people who actually live in our country. That's not it's not showing due care and concern for the people who live here already, who are also human beings, and who have elected governments to represent them. So that's what I would say about that. Kate says charity begins at home, can't pour for an empty cup. I mean, yeah, well, I understand what you're saying, and I wouldn't want to push that too far, but I think there is something true about the fact that you need your economy to be strong and vibrant and robust in order to help people, and you can't just destroy your own country and expect you in a position to help others. Zach says, I voted for Trump. Very good, Zach. Kate says, moratorium on immigration. Yeah, well, I mean, I've said what I've said about that. I mean, that I've given my position on it. Margaret says, well done, Jamie. Great review. Thank you very much. I'm trying my best. I mean, to be honest, I'm flagging a bit now because I've been up since half 4. As I keep mentioning, not that I'm a kind of martyr or anything like that. Rory Stewart, for the record, I was completely wrong about Kamala Harris. This is on Twitter. For the record, I was completely wrong about Kamala Harris. It is heartbreaking that Trump is now the president. See if there are any funny replies. Somebody says, you have been completely discredited as a politician and a commentator. Wolf, aren't political analysts meant to be able to look at data without filtering it through their own biases? Really rude one, that. Another rude one. Dominic says, you were just being decent, Rory, and you expected American voters to seek the same values in their president. Sadly, this was not the case. So there we are. I'm just trying to think if I see if I saved any others. No, I don't know if I have. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm starting to feel a bit tired now. Okay, so what I'll do now, all right, because I've done a lot now and I've been speaking for a while, is I'll just open things up. If you're on Telegram, if you're on YouTube, or if you're on Patreon, just ask me anything you like, or make comments. And just for the next, I mean, I've got half an hour before I really need to finish. So I need to have some breakfast, believe it or not. I haven't had any breakfast yet. Just write whatever you want and I will just respond to it. I'm sorry I've not been able to get any guests on, but nobody's replied to any of my messages. So sorry about that. Probably not the best way of approaching things to just do it while you're actually recording. Not very professional. So anyway, so just send me any comments you have and I will get on them. Somebody on Telegram has screenshotted an article saying Cardi B leads liberal celebrity meltdown as Trump heads for victory. Singer's F-word rant telling Republicans to burn your hats. Presumably that's burning your MAGA hats, I assume. So yeah, so there's that. As I say, just stick anything in the comments, either on Patreon or on YouTube. Doesn't have to be about the election. It can be about anything at all. And I will comment on them if they come through. Nothing at the moment, but we will see. Maybe I'm sure people are watching because it says people are watching. Elon Musk tweets, the people of America gave at real Donald Trump a crystal clear mandate for change tonight. I literally heard a commentator earlier saying that even if Trump wins all of the battleground states, even if he wins all of them, the reason that people are voting for him must be because inflation is bad, and therefore he only has a mandate to do things which pertain to the economy. He doesn't have a mandate to do anything else. I mean, it's an extraordinary way of reasoning, isn't it? To try and reason your way out of any, of Trump having any legitimacy in this thing at all. It's the same thing that happened with Brexit. It's an inability for people to actually accept reality. Julian says, do you think Trump is a bit softer and more collegiate this time around? Yeah, he might be a bit more soft than he was 4 years ago, I think. His victory speech was actually pretty magnanimous. I mean, he didn't talk about Kamala Harris, but it's almost like he doesn't really need to. I mean, but to be fair, I mean, he was quite magnanimous before. I mean, he didn't prosecute Hillary Clinton when he could have done. He said he thought it would be bad for the country. I think it was JD Vance who was talking about that. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe his rhetoric's a bit softer than it was. And I always think he's been quite collegiate, but he's been better now, and bringing other people in as well. Bringing in people like JD Vance. I think that's been great. Bringing in RFK. I mean, JD Vance was quite anti-Trump, a few years ago, if you remember. Kevin says, could you get Calvin Robinson or Bob from Speaker's Corner on the show? I don't know Bob from Speaker's Corner. Calvin could potentially come on. He lives in the US now, doesn't he? So it's just a question of trying to arrange that, but that's certainly a possibility. Who's Bob from Speaker's Corner? I don't know who he is. Tell me who he is. Tell me. Yeah. So anyway, there we go. Let's see. Anything else? Anything coming through on the old Telegram? Yeah, we'll get some people on. Let me tell you actually what's coming up. I'm going to do an interview we're going to do an interview with Rod Dreher because I've just been reading his new book, which I just got last week, Living in Wonder. I mean, this is a great book, great people. Dreher actually is writing about stuff that I wrote about in my book, which I never mentioned. My book's called Charles Taylor and Anglican Theology, which is a distillation of my doctorate. But I was very much interested in that question of I don't think I really called it re-enchantment, but rediscovering a kind of supernatural view of the world. I was particularly talking about it from an ecclesiological point of view, so through what's sort of implication of this for the church. And I was treating it in an academic way, but the good news is I do talk about that in my new book as well, which is called The Great Return, which is a mass market. It's a trade book, as they say. So it's going to be, easier to get, and hopefully lots of people will buy it. It's available for pre-order on Amazon now. But I do talk about this quite a lot, the loss of the supernatural worldview and the kind of supernatural experience of the world, and our need as Christians and as the church, and indeed as humanity in general, society, Western society in general, to rediscover the supernatural. And I don't call it this, but I've just been reading a chapter on the occult and what Dreher calls dark enchantment in this book, where people are so desperate for some kind of supernatural experience, some kind of transcendent uplift, as it were, that they get involved with the occult. And I actually do, independently of Rod, because I hadn't read this book when I wrote mine, but I write about that as well. I particularly wrote about demonic possession, which again, Rod talks about in my book. And I spoke a lot about the book Demonic Foes, which is written by, what's his name? Demonic Foes by, his name slipped my mind, sorry. My son's playing the piano, it's put me off. Anyway, he's a psychiatrist who advises exorcists in the Roman Catholic Church in the US. I'll come back to me in a minute. It's a fantastic book, actually, and it really, if you are skeptical about the reality of demonic possession, then it's a really good one to read. Demonic Foes. I literally can't remember his name. It's funny, isn't it? When you're slightly sleep deprived, it's like you know things, but they're just not coming into your mind. Yeah. Anyway, so it's a really great book, Rod's book, and we're going to have him on soon. I've also got an interview coming up with Richard Bastable, who's a vicar who's put together a letter which has been signed by hundreds of clergy and bishops on assisted dying. It's not been released yet because they're hoping to make a big media splash, but I'm going to do that with him soon, and that will be coming out in the next couple of weeks. But in general, I am hoping to get more guests on the show and to make more of an effort in that area. To be honest, over the past year or so, it's been just crazy having so much to do with the church and finishing my book and so on and so forth. It's been tricky to do all of that. So I'm hoping to get more guests on. So do send me your suggestions through. Okay, Peter says, just listen to James O'Brien on his radio station and manage 10 minutes. He is exactly as he was on Brexit morning. Why, oh why commentary, and how silly the majority were/are. In its way, it's classical broadcasting from the mainstream. Well, similar to Rory Stewart, isn't it, Peter? Really? There we go. Joey says, all of Bart Ehrman's books are informative. Yeah, I'm sure there are. They are. Bart Ehrman was like he's sort of a classic example of a sort of a fundamentalist Christian who's lost his faith and is now applying the same kind of fundamentalist approach to his atheism, or at least his skepticism. I'm not sure if he's an out-and-out atheist, but essentially it started when he became convinced that there was an error in a place name or something like that, or may have been a ruler. in Mark's gospel, and because there was a factual error as far as he could see in one of the gospels, that made him completely lose his faith, or at least it was the first step in the road for him to him completely losing his faith. And I was thinking with things like that, like if your faith is based on whether or not there's a mistake in a place name or a ruler in one place in the Bible, but I think you've got to ask yourself what your faith is actually based on, if that's what you think. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to go too deeply into it, but somebody like Bart Ehrman, who's a biblical scholar, his worldview and his scholarship is predicated on the notion that that there's no supernatural realm and that there are never any supernatural occurrences in the world. And I do think that that's a shame when biblical scholars approach the biblical text like that. It's obviously a modern disenchanted view of the world, which people then bring and then they impose that on scripture. It doesn't have to be like that. Many biblical scholars aren't like that, but that's certainly the way that Bart Ehrman is, and many modern scholars. I've just been reading a book about Advent at Christmas in order to prepare myself for the coming season and the various sermons I'll have to preach by Marcus Borg and John Dominic Crossan. And that's an example of two other biblical scholars who would also approach things in that way. They would say, that if, for example, Christ is predicting the destruction of the temple in one of the Gospels, then, or a part of one of the Gospels, then that must have been written after the destruction of the temple, because prophecy is not real. Basically, all the book of Daniel must have been written much later, because Daniel accurately prophesies succeeding empires that weren't in place at the time, or hadn't been in place at the time that Daniel was supposed to have written. So it must have been written later, and so on and so forth. Joey says the answer is we don't know who wrote the Gospels. I think Joey's a bit of a troll on this channel, to be honest with you. It's fine, Joey. I mean, it's absolutely fine. If that's what you think. Honestly, I don't care if you think that we don't know who wrote the Gospels. That's cool, man. That's what you can think what you like. Think what you like, man. I got no problem with you saying that. It's absolutely fine. I don't mind. I don't mind you saying that. I think we do know who wrote the Gospels, because I think their names are on the Gospel. But someone just rang me. I don't know who it is. If you're listening to this and you rang me, then can you send me a text message and tell me who you are? Because then I can help you out. It could be somebody who's trying to come on the show. And see if I got a message or anything like that. I don't think I do. Have a quick look. No, I don't. Who just rang me? It's kind of interesting, isn't it? Someone rings me in the middle of a live stream. Who is this? I don't think I know who this person is. Sorry, person who rang me. I've had a call from them before. Who are they? Who is that? Don't know who it is. Anyway, sorry about that. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, the Gospels. Yeah. Well, there you go. I don't mind if you say that. The people who wrote them signed them, so that's fine. And everyone in the early church thought these people wrote them, so that's good enough for me, man. I'm a simple man. I believe simple things about the gospel. Jojo's back again. He says, you obviously don't know much about the Bible, and the names on the Bible are traditional. The original Gospels have no authorship. They have been attributed to those people. Dear, oh dear. Joey, how have you ended up on this channel, Joey? How have you ended up here, Joey? How have you ended up on this channel? What do you know about this channel, Joey? No, I'm not going to get into an argument about this, except to say that you can't dichotomize tradition and fact. The whole point of tradition in the Christian understanding of the word is that tradition is an unbroken transmission of things which are true, which are passed on from one generation to the next. So if you have people who wrote the original Gospels and then they handed them on to, the church of the late 1st and 2nd century, and then all of those people assume that those people wrote the Gospels because they literally knew the people who wrote them, and then they transmitted that belief on through the generations, then that's a tradition that is reliable because of their witnesses to the writings of the Gospels, and that's what biblical studies tends to not modern biblical studies anyway. Biblical scholarships tends to not place very much weight on that, instead preferring its own methods of trying to work out who wrote what and when and so on and so forth. And Josh also says, Joey says, how did they know what Jesus did when they were all asleep in the garden? And Josh says, because the Gospels are divinely inspired and God is omniscient, simple. Yeah, very good. Or it could have been transmitted via, Christ could have told them, I suppose, or I don't know. Anyway, never mind. The point is that tradition is a guide to truth. It's not some kind of separate sort of mythological thing, or I don't know what. Anyway, that's not the point. That's not what this live stream is about. This live stream is about Trump. I feel like, as with all irreverent podcasts, it's kind of going off on one a bit. All right. I think I'm going to end soon, unless there are any more. I'm just surveying to see if there are any more comments from any of the patrons or anyone. No, and yeah, so Joey says here, just to go back to this biblical, so this is just proving my point. We know Mark was written after 70 AD because he mentions the destruction of the temple. Yeah, unless it was accurately prophesied by Christ beforehand. I mean, I'm not saying that means it was, but I'm just saying that you prophecy in Scripture can be, you can accept it as real if you believe in the reality of the supernatural world. That's the point I'm making. He says we also know that the Gospels were written in Greek because of the virgin birth translation mistake from the Septuagint. Yeah, I'm not sure what he makes of that. I'm not sure what the point he's making is there. The thing about this is just an interesting point, and this is apropos of nothing really, but it's not. It's a kind of a response to what you just said. But the thing that's interesting about the virgin birth, and this is actually something I picked up from the Bald Crosshand book, is Matthew and Luke both mention the virgin birth, but only Matthew quotes from Isaiah. Is it Isaiah chapter 7, if I remember rightly? The virgin shall, what is it? The virgin shall conceive a son. Is that what it is? And he shall be called Emmanuel. I think that's the quote. Anyway, and what people like Joey say, and actually Richard Dawkins did it on the conversation with Peterson as well, is that's a mistranslation of the word Parther. Is it? What's the ending? Parthenos would be the masculine. Parthene. I don't know what it is. But anyway, the point is that the Greek word means young maiden, right? And it's a mistranslation of that, which is just ridiculous for all sorts of reasons, not least because a young maiden would have been a virgin, and it would have been implied in the word. But the reason that that's such a silly critique is because it says Parthenos, so it must be why has it got a masculine, or is that a neuter ending? I don't know. Anyway, the reason that that's such a silly thing to say, that that's the origin of the view of the virgin birth, is because Luke also mentions the virgin birth, but he doesn't mention the quotation from Isaiah. So if they are both based on an original source, and I think the original source is the factual reality, but even if they're based on a prior source which was written, that proves that Matthew didn't derive the idea of the virgin birth from a mistranslation of the word Parthenos, because Luke has the idea as well and he doesn't mention it. So there's an independent source from which the idea comes, and then Borg and Crossan say that independent idea is then retroactively justified by Matthew by quoting this scriptural text for reasons that cohere with the architecture of his gospel more generally, the fact that it's split into 5 parts and that there are 5 prophecies at the beginning which match the 5 parts of Matthew's gospel. So anyway, so that's that idea that that the idea of the virgin birth comes from a mistranslation of Isaiah, which is what Dawkins says in his conversation with Peterson. That's just completely silly, really. And why anyone would come out with that is, in that way, is an absurd. And why would Matthew, if he wanted to find some kind of scriptural justification for the idea of the virgin birth. Why would he mistranslate something in order to do it? So it's a really strange thing. Yeah, exactly. And Josh says, why would Isaiah prophesy that a woman shall conceive? That's hardly a prophecy. Yeah, the fact is that it's a miraculous occurrence. It's not woman anyway. The word is not woman. Parthenos means a young maiden. It doesn't mean woman. It couldn't be like a 50-year-old woman. The point is it's a virgin. Anyway, it's all carry on. It's all carry on. Joey Jojo Jr. Shabadoo Third Esquire. I think that's a reference to the Simpsons, if I'm not mistaken. He says, but Isaiah isn't even talking about Jesus. If you read it, it's the prophet speaking to the king of Judea about the invasion and how Judea was still stand by 9 months. Yeah, that's true. But there's a multivalency to the prophetic writing, isn't it? So it happens in all sorts of places in Isaiah and in the other prophets. It's like occasionally it will be like something is said which doesn't quite match the context or seems to transcend or go beyond the context, like the bit about, which is sometimes thought to be about Satan, O day star, son of dawn, how you are fallen and all this kind of stuff, speaking about the king of Tyre or whatever it is. But then it talks about, you're trying to make your throne, you're trying to take God's throne, trying to set yourself up as equal as with God, and so on and so forth. And suddenly it seems to be talking in a different register, speaking about a kind of supernatural realm. It's a similar thing in Isaiah chapter 7. It is Isaiah 7, isn't it? I've not got it open in front of me. I don't want to get that wrong. But anyway, the point is that there's a multivalency in the prophetic writings. Indeed, there is in Scripture in general, where things can have more than one reference. They can refer to more than one thing at once. So it can't just be dismissed in this way. I noticed quite a lot of people have stopped watching since I've been talking about this. So no, which I understand. I understand you were here. You will understand. I understand that you came here for Trump, and now I'm speaking about biblical studies. Anyway, so I better go. Listen, I really appreciate everyone being here, being present with me today. I've been doing this in almost 2 hours now, and it's kind of flown by. So I guess what I'd like to say is let me know if you'd like us to do more of these, because I've worked out how to do it via Zoom now, and we can have guests and things like that. If you like the live stream idea, then yeah, let me know, and we can do more live streams. Yeah. Also, let me know. I did those special episodes where I was responding to. I did one on Welby, and then Justin Welby, and then I did one on Peterson and Dawkins. Please do let me know if you have any ideas for things I could respond to. So ideally, they'd be things that I could listen to while I'm like cooking or exercising and things like that, and make notes on, and then do a kind of response video, and I have to be able to do it from a kind of theological or church perspective or something like that. It can't just be some just purely kind of neutral political issue. It needs to be something that kind of is relevant to my area, if you see what I mean. So if you come across anything like that, like a podcast or a video on YouTube or something of that sort, do let me know, and it'll be really helpful, because I'd like to do more of these things. And I am going to start putting more stuff on YouTube. I don't think I'm going to put our weekly episodes on YouTube, or at least I'm not going to do it every week, just because I don't want to feel like we have to censor ourselves. But it would be quite nice to tap into the audience on YouTube. Ranulph says, please do more and add super chats, etc. as well. What are super chats? Can you explain that to me before I finish this live stream? So if I did more live streams and we wanted to do super chats, what would that look like? We could certainly look at doing the regular episode on live stream every once in a while. That might add something to it, spice things up a bit. Many people are saying they like this, so we could do. Many people say they love the live stream. Oh, you can donate money via YouTube. That's cool. All right. Okay. Sorry, I've got a couple of other things. Okay. So Venetia says Parthenos is neuter in Greek. Oh, hence the OS ending. Also, Karasion, young girl, and technon, child. Greek does this a lot because the words convey youth/innocent/childishness and not gender. Why is our age so obsessed with gender and sex? Thank you, Venetia. That's a really good comment. So it's a neuter noun. So it's ho, Parthenos. And Karasion, young girl, and technon, child are both neuter as well. I think that's the point you're making there. Martin says, great live stream, really enjoyed it, but at the end it descended into an argument with a troll, Joey Jojo Jr. The troll could be 77th Brigade, Russian bears, bored teenagers, etc. It ruined the positive atmosphere to engage with the troll. Okay, thanks, Martin. I will not engage with any more trolls. Sorry about that. I do apologize. But we did get some interesting Bible chat out of that as well. Mark says, who is your neighbor? In Jesus' story, it was your fellow countryman in need. I don't think it's quite right, although I'm agreeing. I'm sure I agree with what Mark is getting at. But in the story of the Good Samaritan, if that's what he's referring to, the Samaritan is actually helping out a Jewish man, isn't he? So it's not really his fellow countryman in that sense. Ranulph says you might need someone to help you filter the chat too as it gets busier to stop the trolls. Okay, all right, yeah, fair enough. All right, I'm going to be on my lookout for the trolls. From now on. Somebody send me something positive to finish on before I do. But the super chat idea sounds great. I'd be really up for that. Let's see if I can find something. Let's find I'll have a look at Nick Dixon's Twitter feed. Sometimes it's a little bit dark, but on the whole, he has some good stuff. Although I think Nick has been asleep so I texted him earlier and he hasn't texted me back, and I think he's probably been up all night and then he's fallen asleep. So I don't know if somebody can send me something good to finish on, something positive, something that's going to lift this place up and not be worried about the troll. Peter asked when were the Gospels written. Mark was the first, John was the last written, is what I learned. Yeah, I think that's generally taken to be the order. Michael says, this is a good comment maybe to end with. Michael says, we are at the start of a new day, and then a big positive exclamation mark. That's a good kind of message to finish on. What I would say about this, let's sort of have a final word on this whole Trump thing. So I think that this is, like I said, I think it's great news. I'm really pleased, and we can have a little bit of fun and we can feel happy about things getting better. Now, I think that that's what it is. I think things are better now than they were, yesterday. And I hope that many of these situations will improve. And I hope that this is, as Frosty says, a genuine move towards all of the kind of things he says, like, that's a move against the kind of huge bureaucratic, massive tax state. That's a move for freedom of speech, for sensible border policies, against the trans ideology, pro life and the protection of the unborn, and for peace as well, peace in the Middle East, peace in Ukraine, and so on and so forth. That would be great, and I think and hope that is what's happening. But at the same time, the Bible tells us not to put our trust in princes, and I think we do need to sound a note of, not caution, that sounds too negative, but we need to be balanced about it and say, that ultimately our hope is in God. Our hope is not in man. Our hope is in Christ as the King of the universe, and not in Trump or even JD Vance as leaders in the US. But that doesn't mean that we can't be happy. It doesn't mean that we can't see this as a good thing and hope for good things in the future and have a little bit of fun while we're at it. So that would be kind of my final word on that. And I think given that we've been doing this now for 2 hours, I just have one last check to see if anyone's written anything else. But given that we've been doing this for 2 hours, I think now I can say that we're going to finish. And I'm going to go and have some breakfast. But listen, I've really enjoyed this, and I hope you guys have as well. It feels very different doing things via live stream, I have to say. I feel like a much greater weight of responsibility, funnily enough, to the people who are watching and listening. I feel like I don't know, I just feel different. It's exciting, but at the same time, I don't want to let you guys down. So I hope I haven't. And even when I engage with the troll, I mean, I've learned now. We're always learning, aren't we? But stay tuned, because we've got some really good stuff coming up. And please do give me some ideas about my response videos. I will make one for the Roger Eyre book once I've finished it, and I hope that you'll enjoy that. Lalia Music says, greeting, Jamie from Perth, Western Australia. Greetings. I'll make a video for that. We'll obviously continue with our normal episodes from next week. Do support us on Patreon if you can. If you're not there already, go to reverendpod.com and click on the big red button. We rely on the money for the overheads of the show, and I rely on it to live in a big way. And as I say, you can do that for as little as £1.50 plus VAT in the UK. Really, really helps me. It's enormously encouraging as well, I have to say, to be supported by our listeners and viewers, like people who actually love what we're doing and enjoy the show. It's a wonderful thing. And it also gives me a certain amount of freedom. Well, it gives me a huge amount of freedom, which I wouldn't have if I was, a full-time stipendiary vicar. And as I say, I've got my book coming out, which I hope is going to be a really, really positive thing. And we're reaching people through the podcast and through other things we're doing as well. So your support makes all of that possible, and I really appreciate it. You can buy us a coffee as well if you go to reverendpod.com and click on the big yellow button there. Also, the other thing I wanted to do is just give, Michael says about the buy me a coffee. Yeah, the buy me a coffee is still there, and you can buy us a coffee by going to reverendpod.com and clicking on the big yellow button and doing that. I did actually make a note to myself to read out the buy me a coffee things this week, but I haven't. I'll just see if I can quickly log into it now and see if I can read out some of the messages. Because basically, when you buy a coffee, you leave a message for us as well. It's not a real coffee; it's a metaphorical coffee, and people do leave really nice, encouraging messages for us. So somebody, for example, Rebecca said, "Thank you for your brilliant podcast. I love the relaxed conversational style, while at the same time talking about really pressing and serious issues in our society. Thank you." Another person, anonymous, enjoyed your podcast on Justin. Perhaps a coffee will wake you up and get your brain function again. Thank you. Another person said, we need more podcasts trying to understand current affairs through the work of God. Thank you. Johnny Freedom says, what does he say? Keep up the great work and God bless you. God bless you. Have been blessed again and again by your honest and insightful analysis. That's great. It's great to receive these things. So thank you. Thank you for writing those things. The other thing I just wanted to plug ever so quickly is my blog. Now, I do a blog, which again, there is a paywall, and it's like £5 a month for it. It's called Good Things. And the address is jamiefranklin.substack.com. And I basically do an entry every week. And I try in that blog and steer away from overtly political commentary and things like that, and focus on things which are going to be, which are going to bring life and joy and health and uplift, spiritual uplift to the world. And I try and just share with you some of those things in my life. Occasionally I write about things which are more challenging for me, or things which might be more difficult. But it's a good way for me to process things. I often speak about things that I'm reading or things that I found encouraging. And I think that sometimes that's helpful for people, because it gives you ideas for things to read or things you might want to try. So jamiefranklin.substack.com, and that is it's really special when people subscribe to that. It's very, very encouraging for me, and again, it does produce some income as well, so that's a really great thing. Okay, well, I think that's enough. I really do. So we've been going for 2 hours now, and I think we're there. I think we're really there. So I will say to you, and thanks a lot for all the people who've written some really positive and nice things in there. I'm glad if it's made your morning more full, and for people listening to this later on as well. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate you listening, and just appreciate all you guys. Just being present with us. Week by week in this podcast. As I say, I'm really open to comments, criticism, suggestions for guests or response videos. Do email me at reverendpod@gmail.com. When you email, love to read your emails. If you keep them reasonably concise, that's very, very helpful for me. Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone. And until next time, keep watch and keep the faith.